you doing? It's me, Carpo, with another video for you. This might be video 4500 for all I know. And that's not really too far off base. I've made way too many videos. The funny thing is, over the past few months, I haven't really made as many. I've done some shorts and uploaded a few things, but I haven't made any really heart-to-heart videos, philosophy videos, discussions about emotion and reason. And I'm going to get to why here. And I wanted to just warn you, first off, this is kind of a ramble video about some of the things I've experienced recently. And I had so many things I wanted to talk about, and I couldn't decide what to make a video about. And I know people want to hear a variety of different topics. Some people don't want to hear certain topics. So people kind of like to know what a video is about. So in a way, this video will be, I guess, I wanted to make it about emotion and how we need to control our emotion in order to understand how to really enjoy life. But I wanted to start out by explaining what I do, I guess, what I consider enjoying life. I think experiences are the utmost importance. We need to have as many experiences as possible that we can draw upon. But as I was driving home today, I was thinking about, okay, experiences are important, but also goals, ideas, things that we want to do tomorrow. So, for example, remembering the concerts of the past to go to the concert of the future. And I really had that full-blown experience this weekend when my family and I drove to Bend, Oregon, which is about 3.5 hours away, maybe 3 hours and 15 minutes, up over Mount Hood from the Portland area where I live, and then back down the other side and over to Bend, which is about an equal distance. The mountain's kind of in the middle of Bend in Portland. And let me just say the Pacific Northwest has been having a heat wave. It's been over 100 or around 100 for the last week. It's finally cooled down today a little bit to 90, which is wonderful. And hopefully the overnight temperature gets down into the 59, 69, somewhere. Hopefully low enough to where people can cool down, because it gets rough out here. Not everybody has AC. We're not prepared for that. But down in Bend, of course, they are. So we went down there to see a band called Dark Star Orchestra. And they are a Grateful Dead cover band, but in a way they are the Grateful Dead cover band. I don't know how long they've been playing now, but at least 20, 25 years, I believe. So they started playing, while the Grateful Dead were still playing as a full band, while Jerry was alive, I think. Or maybe at least soon after. I'd have to look that up. But to me, it's just a matter of going to a show. And so to lay out the details, you go to the show, they play an entire concert that the Grateful Dead played, because they played thousands. So they pick a concert and they play each song in order as the concert went. And then at the very end, they tell you what year and date it was, so you can go, And so the year they played was Winterland, 1978, which was the year that it closed. And they played, from what I saw, 6 shows there. One on the 5 in October, 5 in a row, and then one on New Year's Eve. I don't recall which show it was, but I think it was one of the October shows. And it was a hopping show. I mean, it was one of the most amazing shows I've seen, from any Dead cover band or the Dead. That was an energetic show, and I was dancing. We were just having a great time. And, when we drove over the mountain, so I went with my one of my best friends, Scoey, or Scott. And by the way, he's the one who made this hat, and I'm going to set it aside because I'm hot. It's still hot out. But I want to show you all these hats that he made in a little bit, because this guy is a fucking magician when it comes to making these awesome hats. And he's been selling them lately, and I told him I was going to go down and help him out, to photograph and video the process and help him with an Instagram or a YouTube video. And in return, he maybe could help me post my eBay things. But, that's what friends are all about, bartering and having, connections between people. And being in connection with people that I love is wonderful. And one of the things that my friends and I do, at least that friend, Scoey, we go to concerts. He loves the Dead. He loves to go out and see music. And so we go out to pretty much any show that we really can. And he went with me. And then at the last minute, my son and his girlfriend, who had driven all the way to Bend to see, ridden with somebody else to see they went down there to see the same band, Darkstar, in Eugene the night before. And they wanted to go with us to Bend, so they came back, then rode with us. So it was 5 of us in the car, in my wife's car, and we drive it's a hybrid Toyota 2006 something. We just bought it not too long ago. Got a pretty good deal on it used, because it's an '06, so it's getting up there in years. And it's a Highlander, I guess. And the AC fortunately worked, because we got up over that mountain. It was like 100, 102, 105 degrees. But that was brief, because as soon as we got to Bend, it got to there was overcast. It was the first time I've ever really cheered overcast, because it was supposed to be so hot. So we went into the concert and had a great time. And, just kind of renewed my faith in humanity and connections and talking with people, and just the excitement you get from being around positive people, because it's so easy for us to get pulled down. One of the things, before I forget, that I really wanted to mention about concerts and how they've changed, it's really funny, because back in the day, we used to try to bring in, say, you didn't want to bring in a metal pipe, because everybody had metal pipes in the 80s. You didn't want the alarm to go off or the metal detector, and have to throw it away. Getting cannabis into a concert was not that difficult. It's just that most people forgot and put it in their pocket, didn't think anything of it. Whereas I bought a special pair of underwear years ago, these rave underwear that have a pocket that goes all the way underneath the crotch. And you can, I hardly smoke any cannabis in a concert, but when I do, I like to have it with me. And one of the things that I thought was so ironic is that at this show, they didn't really search and take much. They just made me turn in my hip pack, which was really small, because it was a pouch that was larger than their little, thing that you have to measure it up to. I rolled it up and I'm like, so you're telling me I can't wear my hip pack, but I can take all the stuff out of it and put it in my pockets and then turn it in? They're like, yeah. So in the end of the night, before the concert was over, I just demanded it back and they just gave it to me. So, but that's another story. But these days, you might see something like this. I have a hair tie just wrapped around it so I know which end's which, but a lot of people might see this and have no idea what it is. What? Whistle, lipstick? No, this is a cannabis cartridge, a disposable cannabis cartridge. You puff through that end, and this end has a USB plug so you can charge it if you need to. And it's a gram of, 90% hash oil. It's crazy to me that you can just take something like this and just tuck it in your belt and use it anywhere. We usually buy one of those when we go on a trip, on a vacation somewhere, because you can, puff it in a motel room or, somewhere that you really shouldn't smoke, but it doesn't take very much because it's pretty strong. But it's just crazy that it's got to that point, I can go to the store and buy, of course, cannabis. Fine cannabis. This is purple ice water. And I got that in Oregon when I was in Bend, waiting for my family to get a burrito. And I was like, there's a cannabis store next door. I'll just go see what they have. And I've always been a big fan of that. But I guess that brings to note that, a lot of people go to concerts and they really think that it's all about the drugs. And it's not. It's really not at all. What people are trying to do is get themselves to a point where they feel as connected as they can to their fellow man. They want to care about each other and feel good about people. I know this from experience, from all the shows I went to. Back in the 90s, I went to the Dead about nine. I think I saw Jerry Garcia 9 times. I went like 5 times at Autzen Stadium. Went to Shoreline, Oakland, Seattle, and that was about it. Not too far. I was young, but nobody realized Jerry was going to go in '95 like that. So, but it was heartbreaking, because it wasn't just the music, but at the same time, in retrospect, as a musician, I still believe that the Grateful Dead is the greatest band of all time, because they were able to jam for hours and hours in completely improvisational, style. Like Fish, for example, they're, different. Fish will come out and they will bust out the longest 20-minute jams, but a lot of that's orchestrated and planned. And it is with the Dead too, but it was different because there was so much psychedelia and so many years, decades, behind the experience. And it was the acid tests, of the 60s that really brought this into, the mainstream, if you will, at the time, at least down there. And I understood it the minute I went to a show. I wanted to see what it was all about, and I was just blown away. Completely blown away. The music was amazing. The experience was amazing. And that's when I learned that what's most important is connection to other people. Connection to other people in the sense of understanding where other people are coming from, And there is a huge market at Dead shows. In fact, when we were younger, we ended up meeting somebody through Dead shows and the Dead culture named Dawn. It was a lady named Dawn that lived in Northeast Portland, and she ran a company called, and still runs it, called Rainbow Rags. And I have a pair of their pants. It's patchwork pants. Whenever you see hippies with those really wide, thick patchwork pants with all the different patches and colors and corduroy, companies like that make them. She started that shit way back when, in the early 90s. And so they're expensive. I have a pair. It was like a $150 pair of pants. I kind of swapped with my friend at a show. But they're amazing. And, there's so much skill that goes into it. Well, Rainbow Rags, of course, my friend worked for her and her husband for a long time. He started his company called Rag Hats. And so he started out with, say hats like this. I mean, he made this one for my son. It's a Halloween style hat. And then on the inside, it's got these Grateful Dead, Steelies, tie-dye. And yes, you can reverse most of them, if I don't see any reason you couldn't. I mean, they're not all intended to be reversed, but you easily can. And then he made, other ones like this, corduroy. This one has little, Dark Star Steelies on the inside. My friend loves the Grateful Dead. Scoey's a Deadhead. This one also has the Dark Star Steelies and thicker corduroy. And these all, by the way, he gave us all these because he's such a nice guy. He's so kind. He's so giving that he would not say no. These are kind of his learning hats, he says, but I still think they're amazing. I mean, they're great quality. And then he started moving up. He made this big deep bucket hat. Look at that freaking, God, that's an amazing, awesome embroidery. And on the inside, it's got the wizard shit with the sun. It's kind of reflective, like a satin. And then this one, which he just came, when we got back from the show, he gave this to my youngest son, he's 9, Sawyer, and he's like, he insisted on giving it to him. And it is a smaller hat, so I can see why. But this is a frickin' awesome hat, Scully, if you're out there. It's got the Garcia hand on it, but, the thickness of it allows the brim to kind of stick out a little bit more. It doesn't fit me, but this one has a drawstring on it, so you can tighten it around your head, and that's pretty freaking awesome, I must say. I mean, especially if you're traveling down, riding or biking or something, to be able to pull the drawstring and make sure your hat doesn't fly off. So he's come a long way, and I forgot to mention on the inside, of course, He's got his logo, Rag Hats. And these are also pockets. And several of the ones I showed you also have secret hidden pockets that you can put whatever you like inside of. And so thanks, Scoey, for the hats. And I hope to promote his company, Rag Hats. I don't know how he's selling right now. Etsy, eBay. I don't know. If Scoey wants to comment, he can. But we need to help each other promote, because that's how it is. And that's one of the things I discovered in the dead culture, that people motivate each other by seeing what others are doing and saying, wow, that's amazing, I want to do something like that. Back in 93, 94, I was making hemp jewelry. And let's just say, back in those days, the early mid-90s, hemp was the shit. Everybody wanted hemp chokers, hemp necklaces, and I learned how to braid and weave different patterns to weave these amazing, hemp, anything I could make and try to add nice beads onto it. Went to a dead show. I had a Volkswagen bus, a 78. I was working on hemp stuff in my bus, and I remember it kind of fell out of the back of the bus and was in the grass right there. I just told this story the other night. And then I kind of fell asleep because I was pretty stoned, and then I woke up like just a little while later and looked down and it was gone. Some douchebag came up and stole it right from under my bus there, knowing, of course, it was mine. And that's the other point I wanted to make, and this is where a lot of people are kind of dismissive of that culture, the jam band culture. There is a lot of scumbaggery. There's also the nitrous mafia. They're literally the nitrous oxide mafia. They bring in these crappy, half-assed, shitty grade nitrous, and they run up as soon as everybody gets out of the concert, and sell as many balloons as they can, have a guy stand around looking out. These guys are from the East Coast. They just travel around and follow the circuit tour, and we try to get rid of them, but it doesn't work very well. But there's always at least one or two guys who, start a ruckus, and that's a whole other story. Anyhow, the culture is weird. And I only mention that because that's the culture that I've been exposed to. If you go to a different concert, if you're somebody who's into Kenny Loggins or, something more mellow, then you're not probably going to run into this. You go to Fleetwood Mac or something, you're just going to run into a bunch of drunks. And I know, because I've been to Fleetwood Mac and I was drunk. I was one of those guys. But it's not generally a place where people trip. And tripping, people who take LSD or psychedelics of any kind, generally really have a good time, for one, but also some people overdo it. And so they end up being the wild ones, like the one girl at the Dark Star show that was rolling around in the grass and just rubbing herself, literally, while everybody was sitting in lawn chairs. It's not the kind of event, like some venues are way crazy, others are a little more reserved, and Bend is like right next to a river. There's no parking lot for the actual venue. You just park on the side of the road kind of around this area. And it's really small and intimate. It was a phenomenal show. And so, yeah, I had a great time. I guess I just wanted to share that. And that was a long video saying I had a great time. But I really wanted to warm myself up to the next video I was going to make. At the very end of the trip, my buddy Scott and I got into this debate about socialism. And I felt so bad for my son and his girlfriend who were in the back seat, between us, kind of, I say, I don't believe in socialism. I don't believe in, why should people be forced to give to others? I believe that people are kind enough on their own if need be. But I sounded like all these talking points from the right wing. And it's funny because I've always been a moderate, somewhere in the middle, leaning left generally. But, both my wife and I have completely had a change of heart on a lot of things because we've seen the numbers and the facts and the figures. And also a lot of the claims of people who say, look at what these guys have done to be true. The left, the liberal, and I don't want to get into that on this because this is about music and everything. But the point I wanted to make was that being in the car, after going to such an amazing show and then arguing about politics or discussing culture, it's like a pastime. because when you take psychedelics, the next day is kind of like an afterglow, and you have these weird experiences where you have these insights you really want to share. And only through discussing them do you actually get other people's opinions and facts and and challenge yourself to see whether what you believe is true. And so the next video I was going to do here was about emotion over reason and how we've really let ourselves go and really let ourselves get abused by our own ignorance. And that'll be coming up shortly. So thanks for listening to my ramble about shows, and thanks to everybody. Thanks to my patrons. Thanks to my subscribers. Thanks to the commenters. Be sure to hit the like button and all that crap, and I'll talk to you next time. I look kind of stoned, don't I? I'm not really. I just took a little toke. I swear.